Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a huge book haul to share with you today. These are thrifted books that I picked up from the library. I got them for an amazing deal, and later on in this video I will reveal the prices for all of the books that I got. So I'm going to move a couple of them aside and we're going to get through this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about each of the books that I've gotten, but I will explain to you how I go about choosing the books and where they're going to work within our homeschool. So I picked up a number of novels. This is Where the Red Fern Grows. This is from my 5th grader. We also got The Hobbit, and my 5th grader has already started reading this one. And I can't believe I didn't already have this in my collection. We have Lord of the Rings, but I realized that we didn't have The Hobbit, so I was happy to add it in there. I came across this book. It's a tiny little, well actually it's quite large, but it is small in size. This is a cookbook, and for the price, I thought it was a good idea to pick it up. I'm not going to tell you the price just yet, but I will let you know what I spent for each of these books a little bit later. And so I thought, why not? We can get some inspiration for something new for, the repertoire that I have for the things that we cook. And also, we really love including food into our homeschool. And so I thought a short little unit study on cooking might be something exciting for the following school year. So while I picked up that one, my son picked up this one. And then my kids went through and already marked the pages for the desserts they wanted to try. So I thought, why not? Okay, so let's move on to this next stack here. So while picking books, I look for ones that can work with our unit study. So these are kind of all like in mixed up order. Like I'm not going to just show you all like science related books and then history related books. They're kind of all mixed together. But I saw this one. This one's a little bit older, and I kind of liked the illustrations in here. The content's very simple and informative, and it's a very young reading level. So my 5th grader could read this in no time. He could read it to my kindergartner. But I primarily bought it because I really like the illustrations. Then we have this one here by Scholastics. This is Bears. And I liked this one because some of the pages have these acetate overlays. And so it's kind of cool to see this side of the drawing, and then you flip it over and you can see the other side. And I just thought it'd be great to add to our unit study if we do one on bears or animals in general. And plus, even if we're not doing a unit study, this is a really easy book that the kids can read independently and learn something. And it was enjoyable to go through. And so I found another one on whales, and I really liked the first one, so then I'm like, well, let's get the other one too. And again, for the price, I thought, why not? So these are things that will be in our homeschool probably for a long time because they're nonfiction. Novels don't tend to stay too long unless there's something that my kids really, really love. And again, because we got such a good deal on these things, it's easy to pass them on either to another family or back to the library bookstore so that other people can make use of them, and at the same time you are supporting the library. So this is The Voyage of Columbus. We already did our unit on Columbus, but I thought I would add this to our unit study. And it looked just kind of like the books that we typically buy anyway for our unit study. And so whenever I found something like this at the bookstore, I went ahead and picked it up, either for a unit that we plan to do or even for units that we've already done. It causes like kind of like a curiosity and excitement, even if we've already done the unit. But when we're getting a new book, my children will just naturally go through it. And so it's a great way to review information that we've already covered before. This one is called Mountains, Animals, People, and Plants. And I was kind of like, about this book, but then I ended up getting it anyway. I think that some of the photography looks a little bit dated, but then the illustration is still kind of nice. So I decided to get it. And if it doesn't work, I don't feel bad about bringing it back to donate elsewhere, again, because I got it for such a good price. This one is called Animal Camouflage, and I got this one because the illustrations are so pretty. And we don't just use books this beautiful just for reading. We often will use them as inspiration for our own artwork related to the unit study. Then we have Black Bear Cub, and this is an awesome book. I know it seems super simple, but aside from the illustrations being gorgeous, this to me is totally a living book. You learn so much about bears in this beautiful story format. I saw it and I'm like, oh, I have to have it. And then when I found out the price, I was like, oh gosh, this is awesome. So we have this one. Of course, it goes well with the other book that we got. So if anything, I could, and then this whale book went good with this one. So if anything, we could do little mini unit studies on some of these topics and not create like really big ones. This one is the Cheyenne, and this one is not a book that I would typically order or buy to include in our unit study. This would be kind of a book that I would check out from the library, but again, because it was such a good deal, I thought, why not? I'll have it now. I won't have to go to the library and get it when we're doing this unit study, and if we don't like it, we can easily get rid of it, or we can just keep it with our unit study if we do like it. So these two books I already own, and I bought them so that I could give to a homeschooling friend because we like them so much. These are the one small square books. This is for Seashore, and this one is Backyard. We haven't used the Seashore book yet, but we have been using the Backyard book for our botany unit study. And these ones are just beautifully illustrated books. I find that the content wasn't as lively as I had expected. It was not the living book that I hoped for, considering that the illustrations are just so captivating and beautiful. But what I have ended up doing is using parts of the book and not reading it cover to cover. And then I'm using the book as well for inspiration for our drawings. The Backyard book is similar to the other one, and it's also really beautifully illustrated. And we just used this one recently for one of our lessons, and we used it to draw the horsetail. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so we have All About Seeds, and this one was super, super simple, and I debated whether to get it or not, because sometimes books like this, you read them a couple times and then you just aren't interested in reading them again. But again, I got this one for the illustrations. These kinds of illustrations are really great to copy because they're very simple and they are drawn. So if you want to draw it, it's easier to copy something that's also drawn rather than a photograph or just something that's three-dimensional. So I bought this because when I saw the illustrations, that really kind of kind of made me decide, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get that one. And I really like that frog there. So that's why we got that one. And then I was really pleased to see so many books that are, I guess, folktales that are not the typical folktales that you would learn for being in North America. So this is for Africa, and this is for Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain. And I like this because we often don't get the opportunity to learn the folktales of other places, and though we don't have a unit coming up to do this right now, I do envision us doing one in the future because this does relate to some parts of our Waldorf curriculum, and so I'm glad to actually have this as a book that we can use. And sometimes these books are a little bit harder to find at the library. I feel like you kind of go through cycles where you find like a certain kind of book, and then once they're out of circulation, it makes it really difficult to find them. So this one is super beautifully illustrated. I especially love this feather here. And then I like the story as well. So this doesn't have to just be with a unit. I think when I'm getting books, how will this fit into our homeschool? And to have a lot of picture books that don't have a place, you end up not reading them unless you collect a variety of them and use them for a morning basket. So I like to include as many picture books and novels and other kinds of books into our unit study so we get kind of a variety of things going on. I Wish I Could Fly. This is an awesome, awesome book. It's super simple, and it reminds me of a little illustration in relation to homeschooling where you have all these different animals, and this is the turtle, and he's like, good morning, bird, and he wishes he could fly like the bird, and he can't because he's a turtle. And it goes through the whole turtle's it's from the perspective of the turtle. So he wishes he could hop like the frog. He wishes he could swim like the fish. and he wishes he could do all these things like the other animals, but he's a turtle and he can do the things that a turtle can do. Now, in the little illustration, the little cartoon illustration regarding homeschooling or regarding children in general, the turtle wishes he could climb like the squirrel, and the squirrel wishes he could fly like the bird, and the bird wishes he could swim like the fish. And the point is to really embrace what you can do and not worry about what you can't do. And so I really like the moral of the story. This one I was so excited to see. It's called The Starry Messenger. It's the story of Galileo, and it's just beautiful. It's hardback. It's really beautifully illustrated, and when I tell you the price later, you'll be like, that was such a steal. And so I was super excited to see this. This like went on my stack, and I was just like really happy to have found that one. This one is called Galaxies, Galaxies, and I often don't really care for books like this exactly. The illustrations aren't like super captivating for me, but I like the content, and I actually really liked these illustrations here because I feel like I could easily copy this with maybe acrylic paints or watercolors for our astronomy unit that we plan to do a small one in the coming up year. And so that's why I picked up this one. Then we have If You Lived with the Indians of the Northwest Coast. So again, I got this one to go along with our unit study. The thing is that I honestly couldn't remember if I had already ordered this one. But again, I will be passing this on to other homeschooling families if I end up already having it. And I don't think that these are totally the best books as far as like the content's probably fine, but the way that it's written wasn't really all that captivating, but it was really informative. And so if I don't read this aloud to my kids, in the very least, I could use this as my resource information, and then I could retell the information for this particular unit study. We have Snow Way, and this is the story of slaves during the Civil War. And I haven't read through this, but again, this is when I can find picture books that relate to our unit studies, I'm really eager to add them in. I find that picture books really deliver information in a beautiful way. It's very simple so that you can understand, but not dumbed down. And you would think that, I think the misconception with picture books, at least for me, is that I equate them to a new reader, like those reader books, but it's not the case at all. Obviously, young children can't read this. It's meant to be read aloud by a parent or an adult, but the content is written for a child so that the child can understand it, which is fantastic because you can take really big concepts or deep concepts and bring them to the level of the child, but again, not in a way that's patronizing and dumbed down. And the illustrations, of course, are captivating and beautiful. Not necessarily, this is not quite the illustrations that I would go for, but because of the story, I really wanted to add this one into our unit study. All right, so we have Aesop's Fables for children. I actually already own this. We've already read this through for our homeschool the last time we went through this. And again, for the price, this looked like a really good book. It's only a little bit damaged over here. For the price, I totally got it so that I could pass it on to another homeschooling family for anybody who wanted this particular book. All right, so we are almost halfway done, so I think it's probably a good time to tell you how much the paperback books cost. Wait, am I not halfway done? I'm actually not halfway done. So let's save that for just a little bit. All right, so Caves. I should say that this book haul was over the course of 2 days. We went into the library bookstore just kind of on a whim, and then I started picking up some books, and when I went to go look at the price of the books, they were way more expensive than any other library that I had been at. And I was a little bit confused because usually there's a price for the children's books and a price for the adult books. So I went to ask the librarian, and he said, oh, well, actually, we're in the middle of a really big sale right now. And I'm like, okay. So I went right back into the bookstore, and I just started like piling up how many books that I wanted after I heard the price. And so I did not have enough time the first day, and this is a library that's somewhat near us. So I went back the following day, and this book I actually picked up the first day, and then I put it back down, and the second day I ended up buying it. Now it's a little bit dated because of the photography, but again, when it's got nice illustrations like this that are really informative, then I am eager to add it to our unit study or just to our library in general. And we have visited a number of caves like this, and so this is really nice to kind of tie in something that we've done as a field trip into our homeschool, even if we don't do a unit study on this particular subject area. All right, so we have Earthquack. And I just thought it was kind of cute and sweet. You know, when it comes to picture books, I prefer them to be hardback just because they get so much time in my children's hands, and they tend to get more damaged more easily. But again, for the price, I thought, why not? It's super charming and delightful. And the illustrations, again, I'm just drawn to the illustrations. And so we went ahead and got this. Then we have Deer, Moose, Elk, and Caribou. And this looked like a really, really beautiful book. Very specific on this, you know, on deer and moose and elk and caribou. But I thought it would be a good addition to our homeschool library. And then we have If You Lived with the Hopi. Again, this was similar to the other book that I shared a little bit ago. And this is to add to our unit study on Native American Indians. Again, I can use this as a resource for myself, or I can assign it to my child to read if he wants to, but it wasn't quite as captivating as I was hoping it would be. This one is called Animal Fact, Animal Fable, and it was kind of a different book. I haven't seen something like this. It goes through and explains the difference between fact and fable. But if you haven't already guessed it, I bought this book for the illustrations because they're just so beautiful. A little bit dated though. I want to say this is from like the 1980s, 79. So a little different than what you would find today. Then we have Look to the North, and this is by the author that does My Side. She wrote My Side of the Mountain, and I really, really love that book. And so I didn't even think twice. I saw the author, I wanted to get it, and then I started to read it, and I'm like, this is fantastic. You're learning so much in a story format. These are my favorite kinds of books, and of course the illustrations are so beautiful. Then we have the Santa Fe Trail, and again, these are the kinds of books that I would normally get for my unit studies. This one at first didn't look like it was going to be all that captivating, especially since the illustrations or then the photography are black and white, but then I started to read it and it was really good. I couldn't put it down. So for me, I'm like, wow, okay, that's got to say something about the rest of the book itself. So I'm happy that I ended up getting this one, even though at first glance it didn't look all that exciting. So here's another book that's like different than the typical folktales that you would normally see. It's called The Chinese Mirror, and it's about a person who finds a mirror or who buys a mirror at in a foreign land and brings it back, and everybody's so confused because they've never seen a mirror before. So I thought this would be nice to add to our ancient China unit study when it finally does come up. And then The Many Lives of Benjamin Franklin. This is not exactly my favorite book. I really don't care for the illustrations at all. It's really simply written, but I thought it's nice to have a variety of books that my kids can either read to themselves or read to a younger student, or I can read aloud to them when we're doing this era for our history unit study. Then we have Antelope Woman, and this one will relate to our Native American Indian unit study. And these illustrations are really bright and kind of graphic and kind of different than what I would normally go for. And that's not the only, I didn't get it for the illustrations. This one I really got it for the content itself. Then we have The Alamo, and this is again for our history units. It doesn't look like it's going to be all that captivating. I can't tell for sure yet, but it certainly will be great as a resource, lots of information for either myself to read in advance or that I can assign to my child. This is called Colonial America, and this is a workbook. And at first I was hesitant to pick it up, but it's kind of nice. There's like a map in the back here, and then it's kind of workbook style, so there are a couple of worksheets that you can fill in. So we may use it, we may not, but it's okay. We can add it to our history unit. Then we have Rosa, and this is the story of Rosa Parks. And so anytime I have an opportunity to add a picture book like this into our collection, then I'm happy to do so. You don't have to wait for a unit study to read a picture book like this. It's a great addition to your homeschool. And then the bracelet, this is set in World War II time period. This is about the Japanese internment camps. And we live in California, and there are actually some camps that you can go visit now that have been turned into museums. And so we might not get to this period of history as a unit study next year, but we can certainly go ahead and read that on its own. Okay, then we have Polar Bear, and this is totally not a book that I would typically get. I wasn't really interested in like the cover or, you know, just the way that the book is designed, but since we had already gotten a couple other books on bears, I thought why not add it to it, and we can always make it into a really tiny little mini unit study. And then we have Old Elm Speaks, and these are tree poems. And I wasn't super captivated by all the poems. I mean, there might be a couple in here that I enjoyed, but I wasn't crazy about most of them. But the illustrations are super beautiful, and so that's why I got it. And then we have Mailing May, and this is a really beautiful picture book about a little girl who takes a cross-country train trip to go visit her grandmother, and I think the illustrations are super beautiful, and this will work really well with our history units. And then we have Traveled West in a Covered Wagon, and this is similar to the other books by Scholastic. Again, the content's not super captivating. I mean, you might find that it is enough for your student compared to a textbook, but compared to some of the other living books, I didn't find it quite as engaging, but it's good as a resource, and on occasion, I'll assign books like this to my 5th grader to read on his own. All right, so let's move on to another stack. So I think it's a good time to tell you the price of some of these. Let me reveal to you the price of all of the paperbacks. All the paperback books that we got, whether they were I think they were all in the children's department actually. They were all 4 for $1. So just a quarter for all the paperback books. So I was super excited about that. So at the end, I'll reveal the total price of everything and tell you how many things we got. I think in this haul, I can pretty much show you everything. I think there might have been a couple of books that my kids have already, you know, started reading, and they're somewhere in the house. So this book we will be using for our astronomy unit. It's What Do You See in the Moon? And this is super easy, really short, and it actually goes through a lot of different cultures and like what they see in the moon. So it's a little bit about just the different things that people interpret depending on their culture. So you have in Germany, people see this man holding like some sticks or twigs. In India, they see a rabbit, and then they see a frog for Native Americans. So that was kind of neat. And then at the very end, you just see the blank moon, and then you can kind of try to see what you see. And I thought that was really neat. I like books like this. It's different than just the dry, informative aspects of science. My daughter picked this one up, and it's a Disney book. And I let both my kids pick up books that they wanted, and I didn't ask questions. We just added to the whole stack. Then we have The Enormous Crocodile, and I've never read this book, and I certainly could have just picked this up from the library to check out, but I decided we would just add it to our collection. It looks like a book that maybe my kids might want to read more than once. Then I picked up a couple books for my daughter. I asked her if she might like some of these picture books. They're hardback, which I love because that means that we have a better chance of them lasting longer. And so we have 2 of these, Angelina and Alice, and Angelina's baby sister. Then we have The Irish Cinder Lad. And again, like fairy tales from other cultures are really captivating for me for our curriculum, and so I was happy to find this one. Totally not interested in the type of illustrations. They do not excite me at all, so I really just bought it for the story itself. Then we have a DK Eyewitness book. Now, I only bought one. There were several at the library, but recently I actually got rid of a lot of my DK Eyewitness books because I feel like they're not living books. And even the ones that I kept, they're not living books in my opinion. The ones that I kept specifically because I knew how they would be integrated into our unit studies. But I did go ahead and pick this one up because I was just drawn to it, and I thought that it would be good if we decide to do something on butterflies or moths or just insects in general. And so that's why I went ahead and got it. But there were several at the library that I did not pick up. So if you are a DK Eyewitness fan, then you probably, since they're so popular, can find them for a really good price when you are thrifting and looking at library bookstores. And my old DK Eyewitness books, I think I probably gave like 15 away. They went to a loving homeschooling family, so they're being taken care of and being used. This one I totally loved. It says, "Are you an ant?" And you know, it's funny because when you're buying from the library bookstore, you're getting books that have either been donated or they're from like other libraries, or there's discontinued from your personal library. So this one, or not your personal library, but your local library. And this one, as with a lot of them, they were from families, and so it's really cool. Like, I don't know if you're into this, but I love like reading when a book's been like gifted and reading like, you know, about it and then the date. I think it's kind of cool, and it just adds a little bit of personality to the book that you've got. Totally a side note, but anyway, this one is on ants, and I totally love the illustrations so much, and I'm sure the content looks pretty good. I'm hoping. So again, nice to have for our library. I debated getting this one. It's thin, and we don't do art study very much in our homeschool, but I thought, why not? This seemed like it was simple enough to use as inspiration for an art study unit study, and though the drawings seem simple, at least that's what critics used to say at the time, that they were unfinished drawings, it seems like we could probably recreate something similar without it being something like a really like detailed portrait of some kind. So I thought we could. If I don't, it's okay. If we get around to doing it, then at least we have a book that can help us. This is an older book that's called The Story of the Star-Spangled Banner, and this will work well with our history units, and it's 1965, and so you've got like the illustrations that are super dated and totally 1960s. All right, we have Bewildered for 3 Days. This is the story of Daniel Boone, and this is a really beautiful picture book. And look at that. That was $16.95 retail price. And so I think now's probably a good time to tell you how much I paid for the hardback books. And all the hardback books, I believe they were all children's books, all of them were for $1. So I got all of these hardback books for 25 cents each. So you can see how I would go ahead and get some that I even wasn't sure about, because for $0.25, like, that's more than a late fee, you know, or I mean, less than a late fee. My late fees for our library, like, you know, are more than that. So I thought, you know, this is a really good value. Even if a couple of them don't work out, or they go through our homeschool library in a short period of time and then get donated again, that's okay. Because overall, I didn't spend very much for all of the books that I'm showing you today. Ice Bear and Little Fox. I went ahead and got this one. Can you guess? For the illustrations, and I think also because it's a story rather than just dry information. And since we had already gotten other books on bears, I thought this would be really great. And there are little parts that have whales, and so I think a bear and then a whale unit would work really well, and now we have the books to do that. We already have this book, but I went ahead and picked it up anyway. This I intend to give to another homeschooling family. We've read this one before. It's not super captivating to read, but it still was interesting, and my kids did like the illustrations. Then we have The World Beneath, and I asked my 10-year-old if he was interested in this book, and he said yes. So I don't really know much about it. I was drawn to the illustrations, and I thought maybe he might like it. So we'll see. If he doesn't, that's okay. This huge, gorgeous book was only $0.25. All right, so we only have a couple more stacks to go, and there's a lot of similar books in this stack, so this will be quick. We have never read the American Girl series, and I have a little daughter that I think would probably enjoy these in the next couple of years. So we got Meet Addie, Meet Kaya, that's a different one, Meet Kristen, that's a different one, Happy Birthday Samantha, Samantha Saves the Day, and I'll just show you this. I'm not sure the grade level, maybe 4th grade. Then we have Changes for Samantha. That's also a different book. And then, oh, did we get 2 Meet Samanthas? I feel like we did. No, did we not? Okay. I thought we had 2 of them, but that's okay. And so so we got a number of these books. I don't know where they go in the series since we have not explored that series yet. Then we have Cities of Gold and Isles of Spice. And this looked like a good book to add to our history unit study on the Middle Ages and the Silk Road. We've already done that, but having a book like this is a great way to review some of the information that you've already done. This will be for my 5th grader, and that way it kind of just stays fresh for the kids. Then we also have Marco Polo, the Time Warp Trio. I haven't seen this series of books before, but I got it from my 10-year-old son. He could probably read this in a day. It's super simple and easy. And again, it has a historical edge to it, so it's a nice opportunity to revisit some of those things that we've already learned. And this is See You Later, Gladiator by the same, I'm assuming same author? Yeah. And so again, this will be a nice review for when we have already done ancient Rome. And so this would be a nice review for him in a kind of a fun way. All right, we have a couple more historical fiction in here. This one is called A Single Shard. And this is set in 12th century Korea. And we haven't studied any of that time period before, so this will be a nice way to introduce that. And then we have The Golden Goblet, and this is set in ancient Egypt. And then we have Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And actually, I've never read this book, but I saw it on Candace's channel, Homeschool on the Hill, and she was just saying the nicest things about this book, and so I thought, I'm going to get it too. And Charlotte's Web, I cannot believe that we do not have Charlotte's Web in our homeschool library. So we are going to read this summer, and I'm hoping that my kids will enjoy that. And then we have the Twits. Took a minute. And we don't have this one either. That looks like a really easy read, so a nice summer book for us. And then the Talking Earth, again, I bought this because this is the same author that did My Side of the Mountain, and we like that book so much. And so this will probably be for my 5th grader to read on his own. And then we have the Storm book, and this just looked like a nice book that we could add to a unit study on weather or just to read because it's also a nice picture book. All right, we just have a couple more things here. All of my kids picked out their own books as well, and I did not even review or say yes or no. They just each got a stack of books, about 4 to 6 books. So my 9th grader picked out these books. I have no idea about them. And I think he got a couple more that are already in his room. So I thought I would share those with you. I'm going to share almost the best for last. I've got one more thing to share after this book. This is the ABCs of Nature. And I saw this book the first day that we were at the library because this haul was over 2 days. And I picked it up and I looked through the back of the book with, all the animals, and I set this book back down on the shelf. And then I kind of hesitated and I picked it up again and I looked through the front of the book and I saw things related to the botany unit study that we're doing right now. And then I ended up buying this book, and I am so glad that I did, because we have been having a really hard time finding information on the really specific things that we're studying in our botany main lesson block. And this book is fabulous. It is going through so much detail about these things that I couldn't find anywhere else except in an encyclopedia. And even then, it wasn't as much information that's in this book. So I'm so pleased to have this in our homeschool library. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of use. It's called The ABCs of Nature, and it's by Reader's Digest, and it was published in 1984. So definitely dated, but for the content, so worth it. The last 3 things I want to show you are some audiobooks. I have no idea about these audiobooks. I just picked out some things that I thought would be of interest, and I got the Poe Shadow, I got the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, and Cairo Gem, and each of these were only $1/4 each. So I thought that was a good value. All right, thank you so much. I completely forgot to tell you how much I spent for all of these books and how much the original price would have been. So I went ahead and I calculated the original price for all of these books, and it came up to $746. That is a lot. And we only paid $20. That's an awesome deal. So we got 80 different books and audiobooks, 80 of them for $20. The original price was $746.